Kline, from the many roles he's played on stage, screen, and television. In his real life, Kline is devoted to finding a cure for diabetes, a disease which has touched his own family.
And later today, he's going to be testifying at a Senate hearing along with children across the country who have type 1 diabetes, or they sometimes call it juvenile diabetes. Kline joins us now along with Aaron Kowalski from the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. And Aaron also has type 1 diabetes. Thanks so much for being with us this morning. What do you want lawmakers to hear about the importance of funding and research for diabetes?
Well, that there's still an urgent need. We're there to remind them that the need is great, the urgency is great, and that we're on the verge of really a watershed moment in developing technologies, in that we have JDRF and others have funded, mostly JDRF, these hospital trials for the artificial pancreas, and we're trying to get the FDA to put that on a faster track. And so it's sort of just remind the government to keep the funding for research.
Before we go on, that idea of an artificial pancreas is big. And Aaron, you can explain it. You have type 1 diabetes. Why is that important to have an artificial pancreas? How does type 1 diabetes affect your pancreas?
It's we can't make insulin. People with type 1 can't make insulin.
That's what your pancreas does.
That's what your pancreas does, and insulin is what helps us get the fuel into our cells. So the challenge of type 1 diabetes is twofold. We have the risk of high blood sugar causes the terrible complications of diabetes, but on a day-to-day basis, you have the risk of low blood sugar, which can be life-threatening. And the other thing you'll hear from the families today is that it's just really hard. So the promise of an artificial pancreas is it would give the right amount of insulin at the right time, so helping the blood sugar control problems that we have, but also make life easier. I mean, you'll see the families, you'll see the kids, they wear insulin pumps, they do insulin injections, they stick their fingers. It's a grueling disease.
It's a daily, and it's interesting, all of us have a family member. You,
my husband,
my father, not type 1 but type 2. You have a child with it. I mean, how, as a parent, it must be scary as well, because I mean, it is a daily, it's something that you have to think about almost constantly. How does your family deal with it?
Well, we try to take it in stride, but once you have a child diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, you immediately stop being merely a parent. You become a parent, a doctor, a nurse, unless you want your child to live in a hospital.
Right.
The thing is, it is a disease that you can manage, and it's sort of insidious because you can't see someone, oh, you have diabetes, I can tell from looking at you.
It's weird. I mean, you never think of what your blood sugar does for your body.
No.
We don't have to think about it. We have functioning pancreases, and it's an everyday thing for the rest of your child's life.
Yes. And so the families take on a tremendous responsibility, depending on the age of the child, until they reach an age where they can manage it themselves. You have to count every carbohydrate that they take in at a snack or a meal.
Right.
You have to watch their activity because that affects your blood sugar. You have to give them injections. You have to prick their fingers upwards of 10 times a day.
And this is all happening at a time, and especially kids, as they get older, they go into, high school, even in the middle school and elementary level, they want to be just like their friends. They want to be able to enjoy life.
Yeah.
And to have to constantly worry about that seems like it must be difficult.
Yeah, they worry, and again, it depends on the age. The parents and siblings and loved ones care a lot. And it's sort of like having a newborn. You stop sleeping at night. You have to check your child frequently. Depending on what their blood sugar level was when they go to bed, you have to wake up at 2 in the morning. And you worry about them all day. It's really, it never sleeps. And neither do the people who...
Yeah, exactly. Aaron, we're on the verge of these new technologies, and it will be great if they can develop an artificial pancreas that every person with type 1 diabetes could use. But really, what people with type 1 diabetes want is a cure. And you have to wonder why, with all the research we have done and all the money we have spent, why we don't have that, why we can't figure that out.
Yeah, well, obviously, in my family, this is something that we're incredibly anxious for, and we feel the urgency. I mean, we know that type 1 diabetes is a very complicated disease, and I think what we're seeing on the research front is tremendous strides towards a cure. JDRF, that's our #1 goal, is to walk away from type 1 eventually. Right now, today on the Hill, we have research that shows these devices in the near term will help us get there. But we need FDA to act. We need to get these devices approved so patients can use them. And I think eventually that's going to be the case for all the therapies that eventually lead to a cure.
And then for this artificial pancreas, would you have to go through a transplant? I mean, is that would
No.
It
It's
would just
not a
almost
bionic
function as a
it
like
has
a pacemaker almost.
Actually, a lot of kids today and adults wear a glucose monitor, which tells you what, so you don't have to prick your finger every time you want to find out your glucose reading. And they also wear a pump. This would the artificial pancreas would be combining those two so that they work in concert, and it will read your blood sugar, give you the appropriate amount of insulin, be able to detect when you have activity, how many carbohydrates, and do it all for you and act the way a normally functioning pancreas would.
Because think about it. I mean, as a human being trying to figure it out, that's difficult because you're right.
Absolutely.
Everything affects your blood sugar. You know?
And it actually has an alarm that would go off when a lot of times what happens if you're going low, we all have low blood sugars if we forget to have lunch. But if you're type 1 diabetic and you have a low blood sugar, you become disoriented and you get really low, and it can lead to very dire circumstances. It's the same way with keeping it high. We all normally, those of us with functioning pancreases, keep our blood sugar level within a certain range.
Right.
The more we can have these young kids and adults keep it within the range that it wants to be in, then you avoid the complications down the line.
Hopefully you'll make lawmakers understand.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it.
Great to talk to you both.
Great
Kevin
to talk to
Kline,
you.
Dr. Aaron Kowalski. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
We're going to take a quick break.